one after another. The Black Sea is a trap for the enemy. Naval drones have once again performed excellently. The occupiers are still shedding tears over the cruiser Moskva. New strikes are expected. All this and more coming up. Watch until the end. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Darina Hutsakalo, and here are the latest events. The Russian Black Sea Fleet is collapsing even without a fight. This was stated by defense news analyst Isaac Zeitz.
By the beginning of 2025, Ukrainian forces had destroyed or damaged at least 24 Russian vessels, including the Kilo-class submarine Rostov-on-Don. These losses forced Russia to reconsider its naval presence in the region.
Until recently, the Russian Black Sea Fleet was key to Russia's regional dominance. Based in annexed Sevastopol, the fleet was meant to control the Black Sea, support operations in the eastern Mediterranean, and exert influence over NATO.
Despite having almost no navy of its own, Ukraine has effectively used asymmetric warfare to counter the Black Sea Fleet.
As Ukrainian attacks intensified, the Black Sea Fleet began relocating its main forces from Sevastopol to the port of Novorossiysk. This strategic conclusion marked a significant shift in the Russian Federation's maritime strategy.
This move also reduced Russia's naval presence near Crimea, weakening its control over the region's maritime territories.
According to Isaac Zeitz, the results were not long in coming. The Black Sea Fleet has been weakened. However, despite this, it still continues to operate.
Although less frequently, the fleet still takes part in large-scale missile attacks on targets and infrastructure in Ukraine's interior regions.
For more high-profile events from the life of Ukraine and the world, follow the Times of Ukraine Telegram channel. Only fresh news and verified information. See the link in the video description. The first painful blow to Russia's Black Sea Fleet was the destruction of the missile cruiser Moskva. The Russians had not suffered such losses since World War II. A historic moment. Putin's pride turned into scrap metal. Ukrainians say this is what our anger looks like. More about this in our report. The most powerful ship of the Black Sea Fleet, equipped with a satellite system and supersonic missiles on board. A war cruiser where leaders of various countries have met more than once. It also has its own headquarters and even a separate air defense system. In short, the pride and symbol of the Russian Federation. As befits a symbol, it went to the bottom of the Black Sea. The cruiser Moskva. It was the defense forces on Snake Island who sent it on its now famous course. The ship's journey ended 3 years ago when it was hit on April 13th and sank on the 14th.
Andrei Knyazev, I believe this was truly the most powerful and technologically advanced ship of the Black Sea Fleet since 1982.
Olena Danilo, the value of the Moskva was estimated at $750 million. It was essentially a floating air defense system, which allowed the Russians to control the entire airspace over the Black Sea. The destruction of the Moskva made it possible to liberate Snake Island and unblock the maritime trade routes.
Andrei Knyazev, they used it as a command ship. That is, it could actually accommodate about 50 to 60 staff officers, and they could command these ships, aviation, and the Marines. It was equipped with special communications equipment for this purpose.
Olena Danilo, it is unknown how many sailors died on board. The sunken cruiser kept sending greetings from the bottom for a long time, as civilian sailors in the middle of the sea would find rusty oars and leaky life rafts. It is likely that out of the 500 Russian crew members, someone did try to swim out. Although Mr. Andriy is certain, they were already having a hard time even before the missile strikes.
Andrei Knyazev, the weather was so stormy that a significant part of the crew simply fell seriously ill. None of the air defense systems were working, and these missiles simply hit the ship.
Olena Danilo. That's how the monster of the Black Sea ended up as a broken plastic toy, unwanted by anyone in the middle of the Black Sea. Although even from the bottom, it has already acquired a new status, officially, as Ukraine's underwater cultural heritage. The Russian warship became famous on a postage stamp with a record-breaking million-copy print run. It inspired hundreds of now-historic memes and became the subject of exhibitions, museums, and films. All with the main message, Kaku, Ukraine built the Moskva, Ukraine destroyed it, and now Ukraine is studying it. After all, the cruiser was built in Mykolaiv. Olena Danilo. Bit by bit, piece by piece, the flagship is now being resurrected in a Ukrainian museum. These are the remains of the legendary Moskva that our sea washed up on the shore. Olena Danilo. A life buoy, a signal buoy, and also the remains of the Neptune missile, which sent the vessel to the bottom. According to all regulations, these are now being studied by Ukrainian scientists.
Serhiy Voronov. And here is the Guards missile cruiser and the operational number 121. At that time, only the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, the missile cruiser Moskva, bore this number. So this item is original. This item is authentic. This item is from the missile cruiser Moskva.
Olena Danilo. At the Central Naval Museum of Ukraine, they even know the exact coordinates of the sunken Moskva. Director Serhiy Voronov says the depth there is about 50 meters. This means that it will definitely be possible to recover many interesting items from there. The flagship itself is large, so even beginner divers will be able to descend and at least see it from above. Moreover, the Moskva conveniently sank next to ancient ships and more recent wrecks of the Russian fleet.
Serhiy Voronov. This is one of 3,000 sunken ships that we know of, which lie in Ukrainian waters and are registered with us. Most of them are not actually sunk, but rather damaged. For example, the Saratov, a large landing ship that was destroyed in Berdyansk, was not registered by us because it practically did not sink. It settled on the seabed.
Olena Danilo. There are plenty of exhibits for scientists on the seafloor. In just 2 years, following the cruiser Moskva, Ukrainian defenders have sent at least 6 landing ships to the bottom. The largest among them are the Olenigorsky Gornyak, Minsk, Novocherkassk, and Caesar Kunikov. Among them, the submarine Rostov-on-Don, a missile boat, several patrol ships, and even a minesweeper went to the bottom with valuable cargo. In 2024, the defense forces somewhat accelerate the withdrawal of the squadron from Crimea when ATAC MS strike the missile ship Cyclone. After that, Magura drones finish off the smaller boats one by one, and eventually the General Staff's report highlights the figure. 29 Russian naval units destroyed. Olena Danilo, can we say that there are still 15 serious ships left?
Volodymyr Perikolsky. Well, yes, about 12.5. These are frigates. They are the ones that carry missiles. There are also corvettes, again, missile corvettes. And a few landing ships remain there, a couple of them, but very, very delicious.
Olena Danilo, Ukraine has finally driven the Black Sea Fleet out of the Crimean bases, and experts say it did so not only without its own fleet. It continues to follow the strategy of primarily destroying those things that are targeted by missiles, used for landing troops, and where ammunition is stored.
Volodymyr Perikolsky. We have driven the enemy out of the northwestern part of the Black Sea, lifted the blockade from our ports, and resumed maritime cargo traffic to our ports.
Olena Danilo, in Sevastopol only damaged ships remain for now, which Ukrainians occasionally send back for repairs. Due to a lack of forces, the Russians have relocated the base for their surviving ships to Novorossiysk. From there, they still send missile carriers out to sea under full cover from patrols and helicopters, while the most valuable ones are hidden among the rocks, protected by a dozen Russian air defense systems. Olena Danilo. Of course, there are still many monsters in those ports capable of carrying out the most powerful combat missions, and the occupiers are constantly looking for loopholes to protect them. However, our naval forces act proactively and know exactly how, where, and when. The entire Point Black Sea fleet will go to the bottom. Olena Danilo, Olena Hashchuk, Volodymyr Perikonsky, Oleg Karashchenko, Denis Yaroshenko, TSN 1+1 Marathon, United News.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Ukraine is using asymmetric warfare to counter the Russian Black Sea Fleet. At first, Neptune and Harpoon missiles were used and then the era of maritime drones and unmanned surface vessels for striking Russian ships began. The epic footage of special operations by our defenders speaks to the success of their use. Recently, SBU drones once again reminded the Russians that the Black Sea is a trap for them. Footage has emerged showing how our forces took out the Neva radar, warehouse facilities, and a residential block. Recently, operatives from the 13th Main Directorate of the SBU's Department of Military Counterintelligence carried out a combined special operation using both maritime and aerial drones. The target was Russian radar equipment installed on Ukrainian gas extraction platforms. According to the SBU, one of the platforms was first struck by an aerial drone and then, additionally, by a maritime drone. Within a single special operation, SBU specialists used two types of drones, which demonstrated the effectiveness of working in tandem. We once again reminded the enemy that there is no place for any Russian junk in the Black Sea. Recently, our defenders reported on another spectacular special operation. Ukrainian soldiers shot down 2 enemy aircraft in a single day. A Russian Su-30 fighter jet was hit by a missile from a Magura sea drone near Novorossiysk. Another high-value target was destroyed during an operation in Crimea. Secret details of the spectacular work of Ukrainian forces have come to light. You can't miss this.
No one has ever done anything like this to them before. For the first time in history, Ukraine shot down a military aircraft with a sea drone. Our defense intelligence confirmed the destruction and published this video as evidence.
And by the way, this is not the first time enemy aircraft have been destroyed, but previously those were helicopters.
A day later, some details began to emerge. In particular, the head of the defense intelligence, Kirilo Budanov, clarified in an interview with the War Zone that 3 unmanned Magura V-7 boats took part in the attack, 2 of which fired at the aircraft. At the same time, 2 Russian Su-30 SM attack aircraft were destroyed. One of the crews was killed while the other managed to eject. The Russians immediately sent a civilian vessel after him, hoping that Ukrainians would not violate the rules of war and would not fire on civilians.
Despite the fact that the Ukrainians had many opportunities to destroy this civilian cargo ship along with the Russian military crew, they did not take advantage of them. They watched as the crew was being evacuated. They circled around the crew who were floundering in the water. Nevertheless, they did not fire a single shot at either the cargo ship or the crew.
It also seems that the situation regarding which missiles the Ukrainian Magura drones were firing has become clearer. In particular, photos have appeared online showing a naval drone equipped with an American AIM-9 air-to-air missile. Earlier versions of these unmanned surface vehicles were armed with Soviet R-73 missiles.
That's what makes it unique. Indeed, the fact that this is under a remote control system, a remote system, is very important. It shot down a manned object. And if we talk about the cost, for example, the Magura, which is around $250,000 to $300,000, and the cost of a Russian Su-30, which is $40 to $50 million, then you can compare or estimate how many times cheaper the means of destruction is compared to the much more expensive target it destroys.
At the same time, analysts point out that the issue here isn't even about the money, although the Kremlin is increasingly having problems with that as well. The main thing is the technology and production capacity, which in Russia have either been lost or are in severe shortage due to Western sanctions.
Every Su-30 SM aircraft is worth its weight in gold. The issue is with the components. It's difficult to get them around the sanctions. Moreover, as far as I know, Su-30 SMs are either not being produced at all or are barely being produced.
In addition to the obvious results, the destruction of Russian aircraft brought another advantage to the Ukrainian armed forces with this attack. The enemy is not completely suppressed now, but they are definitely terrified. Having lost 2 colleagues and most likely hearing about 2 more unexpectedly fished out of the Black Sea, one can only imagine what kind of mood they will now have when flying missions over the Black Sea area.
The crews of Russian aircraft flying over the Black Sea, who now realize that they no longer have a sense of security. Yes, even if they don't see us, if their targeting radars don't pick up our weapons, that doesn't mean those weapons aren't there. And these weapons, these types of armaments, have now ended up right in the sights of their aircraft.
By the way, it's not any easier for the pilot's command either, because even if the radars detect Ukrainian Maguras, now that doesn't automatically mean the aviation will be ordered or to take off. Because the leadership of the Russian Air Force now understands, it's far from certain that the next pilots will get away unscathed.
Every time the Ukrainians launch an operation in the Black Sea, Russia faces a very tough choice about what to lose. Oil and gas platforms, or say, some other installations in the Black Sea. Or for example, their assets in Crimea, because these unmanned boats can also carry drones. In other words, they're like mini aircraft carriers. Or maybe they'll have to lose another helicopter or a Su-30SM.
How do you assess the state of the Russian Black Sea Fleet? Share your opinion in the comments. Hit the like button under the video and stay up to date with the main news. There are already 420,000 of us subscribed. There's more to come. See you.